everyone. Thanks for joining us today for Demystifying the Sales Tech Stack. We're really excited to talk about this topic. A couple points of order to begin with. First of all, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to write in the Q&A section in the WebEx interface, or you can email marketing@veeloinc.com. We probably won't have time to field all the questions just because we have a lot of stuff to go through. This is a really jam-packed, information-packed webinar. We're also going to be writing a series of content on this topic. If you're interested, you should go to veeloinc.com/subscribe. We'll have a little reminder at the last slide. And when you get the email with the recording and the link to the slides, we will also have that information so you can easily follow along. And now, without any further ado, Brian Fravel, VP of Marketing.
Thanks, Candy. So thanks, everyone, for attending. As Candy said, we have a lot here, and we know you're all busy. So we're going to try to do it in 30 minutes, but honestly, we probably could spend 8 hours on this topic. And so as Candy said, we'll be doing some more content, probably some webinars, infographic type of things. So go to veeloinc.com/subscribe, and you'll get the latest and greatest as we pull it out. So let's get into it. Simple agenda. We're going to go through first. I'm going to give you the scope and kind of considerations because this is kind of a broad topic, and we can go a lot of different ways with it. I'll introduce you to the framework that we've put together, and then we'll walk through the framework with some example companies in a little bit more detail. So on the scope, we focused this framework on the act of selling and improving sales performance. We did not include customer retention and customer service. There is a whole set of technology stack for that. We did not tackle the MarTech stack, although you could argue some of the examples we're going to show you kind of cross the lines between sales and marketing. And we also left out CRM and marketing automation. Those two marketplaces are fairly mature. There's some larger players, and there's plenty of information out on the web today if you're evaluating one of those. But we do want to acknowledge that those two are critical pieces, if nothing else, are kind of the anchor for this whole sales tech stack that we're going to go through. And then the way we did this framework was not an attempt to put every possible logo into boxes like Scott Brinker has done over on the chiefmartech.com blog, which is fabulous. But rather, we wanted to take a different approach and really create a framework that would help people decide what their needs are and then start formulating the questions as they engage vendors. So this is really trying to go through the eyes of someone that is purchasing has a business problem, is purchasing one of these tools. And then last but not least, we prioritize simplicity. This is a super complex space. We'd love to hear your feedback, what we missed. I'm sure we've missed some things. I'm sure some people will say you've oversimplified some things, but we thought simplicity would be more useful to people than trying to get super complex. So that's the scope. Some key considerations before we get in. We would all love to have this beautiful framework where vendors fit perfectly in a box and we'd be done with it. But the truth of the matter is that it just doesn't work that way. Some vendors do one thing and they'll go very deep. Some vendors will go very broad and touch multiple. Different vendors tackle problems different ways. So you may have two vendors that have a sales coaching tool, but they do it in a very, very different way. And so really the key for anybody that's considering technology in the sales tech stack is you need to define your business challenges before you start diving into the evaluation of technologies. And it's interesting how many companies we even talk to who are just out kicking the tires of the technology landscape without really understanding what problem they're trying to solve. And last but not least, of course, this is a snapshot in time. This is a very fluid, fast-paced landscape, so chances are within 6 months this will radically change. All right, so last word of caution before I dive in. If you don't have a strategy and a plan, you're going to end up with a sales tech stack that looks something like this, and that is not what you want. You want an integrated sales tech stack with systems, sharing data and talking to each other, because that's where the real value comes, when you can start to holistically see your entire sales process and where you can optimize, where you have inefficiencies, et cetera. But if your systems aren't integrated, then you're not going to have that. Okay, so let's jump into the landscape. And I'm going to introduce the framework first. 4 simple boxes for the framework. The first, probably the most robust, is the sales process. And I'll dive a little bit deeper into these. But the sales process is really going from I need someone to contact, I want to target my product to VP of sales, all the way to how do I close the deal. And of course, you want to do that as quickly and efficiently as possible. On the bottom, there's some support functions. So one's people development. I have a Salesforce. I want to make sure that they know what they're talking about, they're onboarded, they're trained, they're knowledgeable of changing things in my competitive landscape. There's a variety of administrative support functions. These are typically focused on reducing costs and making sure I'm running efficiently. And then, although not necessarily specific to the sales tech stack, there's business intelligence and analytics. And you only have to look at the MarTech space to see what's happening in the sales tech space. As MarTech has exploded in the last 5 to 10 years, so has the data. And when you have all of this data, you want it to put it together into a holistic story. And this is where business intelligence and analytics tools can help you. Many of the sales tech companies that we're going to talk about have basic reporting functions and analytics. But as you start to implement more and you get more and more data, chances are you're going to look at third-party vendors to pull it all together. So let's dive a little bit into the framework. Sales process. We're going to start at the very beginning. So I used the example before. I want to target my product to a VP of sales at Fortune 500 companies. Okay, so I need contact information. Maybe I have a name and an email, but I need a phone number. So there's a whole set of tools that are focused on gathering information. So I have the contact information for the person, and I probably have lots of contacts. Maybe I have hundreds or even thousands. Now the question becomes, who do I contact? Which ones should I focus my time on? Which ones should I follow up on? Which accounts are more likely to close than others? And a lot of these tools really are about prioritizing a salesperson's time, so they're spending on those things that are most likely to close. Then there's, okay, so I figured out, I have the contact information, I decide who's the highest priority. How do I want to contact them? Phone, email, social. There's a whole set of tools here that help you manage that contact to your prospect. Then you move on to, okay, I get that prospect, let's say on the phone. What do I do to sell? What do I say? How do I stay on message? How do I make sure that I share the right content, the latest content? Hopefully you do a good job. And then you have a whole set of tools that are focused around what do you do to close. CPQ there is configure, price, and quote. So now I need to create a quote, pricing, and then ultimately get them to sign a contract and make the deal final. So that's the sales process. It really starts from basic information all the way to close. And in the next couple slides, we're going to go through a little bit more detail, and I'll give you some example companies in these spaces. If we move down to people development, it really is about onboarding and then ongoing training. And really, onboarding really should be ongoing if you think about it. It's, sure, I want to get someone up to speed and to quota as fast as possible, but then as the landscape changes, competitors change, products launch, I want to keep them up to speed. So it's ongoing training. And then there's coaching. On the administrative support side, there are a variety of tools, and as I said before, a lot of this is about efficiency or cost. So how do I do a better job forecasting? How do I manage quotas, commissions, and compensation? How many sales reps should I have in a given territory? Where should I put more sales reps because there's greater opportunity? And then finally, business intelligence and analytics to make sense of all the data that you're going to create with all of the tools that will sit in this framework. So in the next couple slides then, what we're going to do is we're going to dive into each of these areas in a little bit more detail, and I'll give you some example companies. Caveat, obviously there are hundreds if not thousands of companies in this space, so these are example companies. There are many more, and as you decide what your business challenge is, I'm sure you will run into many, many more than I have here. So let's start with the sales process. So gather information, and I'll go through this format for each of these. It's kind of like, what is the business challenge? And then here's some example customers, and I'll give you some key considerations as you're looking for it. So the business challenge here is, I know I want to target my product at whatever audience, VP of sales at Fortune 500 companies, so now I need contact information. Or I have some information, but I need the rest, like I don't have their phone number and email, I just have a name, or I don't have their title. So there's a variety of customers here that offer these data sources. Key considerations when you're looking into them is, do you want quantity or do you want quality? Because as you start to explore vendors in this space, some will focus very heavily on quality, meaning they know the contact information is up to date, it's updated regularly. They use people to update the information as opposed to doing something like web crawlers. Some businesses want quantity, and they're okay if X% of the data is bad, and obviously pricing models will change based on what you're paying for. Typically quality will cost you more than if you just want a quantity vendor. You need to decide whether it's a one-time or ongoing need. If you have an ongoing need, someone that is updating the data regularly is probably a better fit for you. And then also you have to decide, and when you engage these vendors, be specific about who your target buyer is. You will find some vendors who say specialize in the IT decision maker space. And so they may have the CIO and the Vice President of Information Technology, et cetera. If that works for your business, then that may be the right list vendor. Other list vendors will specialize in, say, sales and marketing. So it really depends on who your target buyer is, and be sure to ask the vendors as you engage them where they specialize and do they have the right titles that your business needs. Okay, now we move on to, okay, I have a bunch of leads or contact information. Who do I contact? And I want, obviously if I'm the VP of sales, I want my reps focusing on those leads with the highest probability to close. And there are a lot of predictive technologies now that have come out to try to predict based on a set of attributes that these systems collect, and a lot of them will get smarter as you use them. And not only which leads or contacts are most likely to close and win deals, when is the right time and what is the right frequency for my reps to contact them? Because even if you have a high probability, we all know that one phone call likely will not get you your first meeting. You're going to have multiple attempts, and there are better times than others. Many of the tools also will remind reps. So is it time for me to call Joe, VP of Sales, for the fourth time? So it automates some of those things so your sales reps don't have to remember it all in their heads and write themselves notes. The other thing here is that, and a key consideration is, are you going account-based or are you just treating all leads equally? Because some of these tools will do a very good job at scoring individual leads and predicting whether, their probability to close. Others will do it on an account basis. So if you're moving to account-based marketing and account-based selling, ask your vendors how they treat that, because you can score accounts differently than you can score individual leads. The other thing to really understand what you need and ask your vendors is, are you looking for a solution for your sales development or business development reps? Is this an inside sales tool or is this a field sales tool? Because the tools here, some of them will specialize and have things and features that will be really useful for, say, like a sales development rep, but chances are that feature isn't going to be as useful to a field sales rep. So you really have to decide what kind of salesperson you're targeting for these tools. Next is how you contact, and there's admittedly a lot here, and this is just a small snapshot, but really it's about efficiently and effectively communicating with your prospect. And there are things like call automation tools, calendaring, meeting tools I'm going to guess most of you use online meeting tools already. There are tools where you can manage cross-channel communication. So I know that Joe, VP of Sales, I have interacted with him via social and email and phone, and that's all together. And so the key consideration here is what are your communication needs, and again, also what type of salesperson are you buying a solution for. A good example there is connect and sell. If you're going to load up a large list of people to call and you're going to prospect via phone, connect and sell is a good solution for a sales development rep. Connect and sell would not help a field sales rep much at all. It's just not designed for them. So you really have to know who you're buying for. Now, what do we do to sell? So I got the person on the phone. How do I make sure my sales rep is on message, is selling my value proposition correctly, has the latest content, properly branded, etc. And here, the key considerations are how much content do you have? Do you want your sales reps creating their own content, or do you want them using, marketing approved content? Are they doing it more in person, online? And there's a variety of tools here that can help you, again, depending on what kind of sales rep you have. The other piece is some of these tools offer coaching alongside content, because let's be honest, I think we all know that sales reps don't read the white papers and the briefs and things like that, and so when they're sharing with the prospect, how do we know what they're saying and are they staying on message? And so putting coaching alongside the content, kind of a short, quick, here are the key points, you're more likely to get a sales rep to read that versus the 10-page white paper. And then finally, we get down to the close. And the idea here is we want to be able to quickly configure a quote, correct pricing, get the contract signed. And most businesses have a lot of product offerings. It can be pretty complex, and so these tools can really help take the complexity out of it. A CPQ tool, if you have one product with relatively fixed pricing, then you probably don't need a CPQ product. So it really comes down to what's your product line complexity, how much pricing complexity and how much flexibility do you give your Salesforce, and then also what's the pricing approval processes. The short answer is the more complexity you have in kind of those three questions, the more likely you benefit from a CPQ. And then digital signing is fairly straightforward. It's, rather than old school ink on paper, it's secure signing of contracts. Okay, so that's the sales process. Let's move into people development. And people development is really all about knowledge and skills of your Salesforce. And the key business challenge is, how do I get someone onboarded, new to the company, and hitting quota as fast as possible? And then with my existing sales reps, how do I make sure they stay at a sustained high performance level, even as I launch new products and the competitive landscape changes? And it's not just knowledge, coaching is a part of it. Coaching is an important part of it. And so on the examples here, I kind of give, on the one side with onboarding and training, you have someone like MindTickle who really focuses on the training piece of it. Many training vendors offer gamification, leaderboard contest type of things to make it a little bit more fun and engaging. On the coaching side, you have like an Allego, and then Veelo and Brainshark actually do both. So you kind of have, as I said before, not every company fits in a perfect box. Some do a little bit of everything. So key considerations here, especially for coaching, is there are a variety of ways to do it. There's the kind of contextual coaching, and by that I mean I'm about to go into an account, let's say it's automotive industry, talking to VP of sales, coaching me on how to handle that conversation for that specific scenario in the moment is really valuable. There are also tools that are more ad hoc, non-contextual. So video coaching tools. Maybe my sales manager wants me to practice pitching the new product launch that we just launched. So I do it, take a video of it, I send it to my manager, and then he can critique me and give me feedback. That's not as contextual. So two different methods of coaching. One is not better than the other, and actually, frankly, both are probably needed. Just as you go through and look at these tools, see what kind of coaching they offer. On the learning space and onboarding, micro-learning tools for post-training reinforcement. There's been plenty of studies out there that when you go to let's say a one-day training, 80% of what you learned is lost in 30 days unless there is some sort of reinforcement and reminder. So micro-learning tools can dramatically increase knowledge retention. And then last is everything I have here is more on the sales training side, so it's focused on sales. There are also corporate training systems or learning management systems. Our experience is when we talk to sales departments, most of the time we hear things like, you know what, that's a big, huge behemoth system. It's overkill for what I need. I just need a really good tool to make sure that my sales reps are up to speed on the latest and greatest. But there are some organizations that want to tackle the entire organization, in which case you might want to look at a larger learning management system. I don't have any here. These are all more focused on the sales market. Okay, administrative support. And the question here is, how do I make sure that my sales organization is running efficiently and effectively? It's that simple. And so there are commissions and quota management tools, forecasting, there are tools for employee recognition. It really comes down to, again, product offering complexity. If you have one product with relatively low flexibility pricing, you only have 10 sales reps, you can probably manage your commissions on a spreadsheet. As you get more complexity, different types of sales forces, different sales forces selling different products, that's when a lot of these commissions and quota management systems can be really useful. And then finally, business intelligence and analytics. Now, as I mentioned, just about every one of the categories and every one of the vendors I showed has some level of basic reporting. But typically, you will find, especially in larger organizations, you will outgrow the reporting that they offer, and you'll want to start to slice and dice the data in different ways. And so you also want to pull all this together to give yourself actionable insights and see the whole picture together as opposed to just one, how am I doing on training? Well, what you'd really want to know is my training actually having an impact on revenue? And so you're going to have to pull data from multiple sources together. And as I mentioned here, the companies I have here aren't necessarily sales specific. Actually, they can help the broader organization in all departments. But they help you start to pull all this data together, slice and dice it for the multiple GMs, all who have their particular way they want to see things reported, and also give you insights. And so really the key considerations here is the in-package of the software solution you have reporting enough for you, or do you need more? Do you have lots of data? What are your reporting needs? Do you have 12 different GMs where you have to slice it and dice it 12 different ways? And how much data are you producing? As you grow the number of software tools, chances are you will start to grow you will exponentially grow the amount of data you have, and the need for business intelligence and analytics will grow. Okay, so let me build this out. So that was a lot in a short period of time. But hopefully this framework and kind of going through the sales process and how you sell was useful. So the idea was you can decide where your biggest pain point is and then dive into that space, ask the right questions. We will be producing some sort of infographic with this with a little more detail, so please subscribe and we'll get it to you as soon as it is created. So just in conclusion, the key thing that I can't stress enough is plan before you act. Don't end up with this discombobulated pile of shoes that just don't connect together. Know the problem you want to solve before you engage vendors. Then you can ask specific questions. Do you do this? Do you do that? I'm looking for a solution for my inside sales team. Tell me how your solution is better than your competition. Choose a solution that solves your need and your problem. The market leader isn't always the best. In fact, sometimes you'll find that some of the big solutions for some needs have so many bells and whistles that you'll never use. So as I mentioned before, some vendors will go very wide across multiple areas. Some vendors will go very deep into one specific, and it really depends on your need. And then last but not least, we'd love for you to come back for more. This is a broad area. This was meant to scratch the surface. We'll be diving deeper in the coming months, weeks and months. If you want to stay up to date, just head over to veeloinc.com/subscribe and we will keep you up to date. And with that, I thank you, and I'll turn it over to Candy for a couple housekeeping things.
Absolutely. So you will be receiving a link to the slides and the recording sometime tomorrow morning, and we will keep you posted on what's going to come. And if you have any questions, please email marketing@veeloinc.com, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thanks so much for attending the webinar.